Occupational Health and Safety, Part 4, Grade Section 16, Victimization forbidden. No employer shall dismiss an employee or reduce the rate of his remuneration or alter the terms or conditions of his employment to terms or conditions less favorable to him, or alter his position relative to other employees employed by the employer to his disadvantage, by reason of the fact or because he suspects or believes, whether or not the suspicion or belief is justified or correct, that the employee has given information to the minister or to any other person charged with administration of a provision of this act, which in terms of this act he is required to give, or which relates to the terms, conditions or circumstances of his employment, or to those of any other employee of his employer, or has complied with a lawful prohibition, requirement, request or direction of an inspector, or has given evidence before a court of law or the industrial court, or has done anything which he may or is required to do in terms of this act, or has refused to do anything which he is prohibited from doing in terms of this act. Willfully furnishes information or makes a statement which is false in any material respect, hinders or obstructs an inspector in the performance of his functions, refuses or fails to comply to the best of his ability with any requirement or request made by an inspector in the performance of his functions, refuses or fails to answer to the best of his ability any question which an inspector in the performance of his function has put to him, willfully furnishes to an inspector information which is false or misleading, gives himself out as an inspector, having been subpoenaed under Section 32 to appear before an inspector without sufficient cause, the onus of proof thereof shall rest upon him, fails to attend on the day and at the place specified in the subpoena, or fails to remain in attendance until the inspector has excused him from further attendance. Having been called under Section 32 without sufficient cause, the onus of proof whereof shall rest upon him, refuses to appear before the inspector, refuses to be sworn or to make affirmation as a witness after he has been directed to do so, refuses to answer or fails to answer in the best of his knowledge and belief any question put to him, or refuses to comply with a requirement to produce a book, document or thing specified in the subpoena, or which he has tampered with, or discourages, threatens, deceives, or in any way unduly influences any person with regard to evidence to be given, or with regard to a book, document or thing to be produced by such a person before an inspector under Section 32, prejudices, influences or anticipates the proceedings or findings of an inquiry under Section 32 or 33, tampers with or misuses any safety equipment installed or provided to any person by an employer or user, fails to use any safety equipment at a workplace or in the course of his employment, or in connection with the use of the plant or machinery which was provided to him by an employer or such a user, willfully or recklessly does anything at the workplace or in connection with the use of the plant or machinery which threatens the health or safety of any person, shall be guilty of an offense and on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 50,000 rand, or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 1 year, or to both such fine and such imprisonment. Any employer who does or omits to do an act thereby causing any person to be injured at a workplace, or in the case of a person employed by him to be injured at any place in the course of his employment, or any other person does or omits to do an act in connection with the use of plant or machinery thereby causing a person to be injured, shall be guilty of an offence if that employer or user, as the case may be, would, in respect of the act or omission, have been guilty of an offence of culpable homicide had that act or omission caused the death of a said person, irrespective of whether or not the injury could have led to the death of such person, or on conviction be liable to the fine not exceeding 100,000 rand, or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years, or to both such fine and imprisonment. Whenever a person is convicted of an offence consisting of a failure to comply with a provision of this act, or any direction or notice issued thereunder, the court convicting him may, in addition to any punishment imposed on him in respect to that offence, issue an order requiring him to comply with the said provision within a period determined by the court. Whenever an employer is convicted of an offence consisting of a contravention of a provision of Section 23, the court convicting him shall inquire into and determine the amount which, contrary to the said provision, was deducted from the remuneration of the employee concerned or recovered from him, and shall then act with respect to the said amount